Hey guys, it's going to do. I'm back with another video. Today we're going to look at one of the craziest disposals of a body I've ever seen in a murder, but also one of the most insane ways a killer was caught. This case is fascinating. Before we jump into it though, if you could hit that like button, subscribe and hit the notification bell, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. Right, let's get into the case of Fred Grabbe. By local Illinois standards, the Grabbe family were rather wealthy. They had a soybean and cornfield farm, and the majority of the money for that farm came from the wife, Charlotte Grabbe, in a massive inheritance. But Fred and Charlotte Grabbe worked incredibly hard, night and day, on this farm to make it as successful as possible. However, their relationship was far from smooth. They had two children, Jeff and Jenny, and they were married for 23 years, which sounds like, wow, what a long, healthy marriage. No, not at all. It was incredibly violent, and they actually separated. They actually divorced in that period, but then got remarried not long after, something like a year later. But they were married for 23 years. Fred, he was a very overbearing man. He was a very large man, 6'4", and his wife Charlotte was incredibly small, especially in comparison to Fred. And he would use that power, that dominance, violently when arguing with Charlotte, which was very, very often. Not only this, Fred would consistently cheat and have affairs behind Charlotte's back. But at the age of 43, he really liked a younger woman. Towards the end of their marriage, had another girlfriend, Vicky McAllister, who was 23 years of age. To kind of put it into perspective just how violent this relationship was, Charlotte would tell her children, look, if I don't come back at the end of the day from, ploughing the fields or whatever on my tractor, you need to go looking for me. You need to inform the police because, well, there's a chance I might get into an argument with your dad and he might kill me. That is how bad, how dire the situation got in this marriage. However, shortly after learning of Fred's affair, it was kind of like the final straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. So she filed for divorce. Now, Fred did move out of the family home, but he just moved into a cabin on the family farm's grounds, and he moved in there with Vicky. A few days after that, Charlotte goes to this cabin to retrieve some family furniture because she felt that it was hers, but this deeply angered Fred, and he ended up beating her up, which led to Charlotte filing a battery charge against Fred. On July 24th, 1981, the scenario that they had planned for happened. Jeff and his sister didn't see or hear from their mother, and it was getting late. So they went out searching for her, fearing that their father had done something horrendous. They couldn't find her. All they could find was her tractor and her lunch and lunchbox on the tractor tire, indicating it hadn't moved for a while. Jenny sprinted back home and called the sheriff's department to say that her mother was a missing person. And the sheriff, of course, after seeing the battery charges, etc., and knowing the history of the family, went straight to Fred's house and questioned him about it. And he said, look, I did see her. I had an argument with her, but she drove off down the highway. And so the police were like, okay, well, we'll have to take your word for it at this point. And so they trotted off down the highway to go and try and find her. All they could find in the car park of a pub was her car. They searched the car, no indication of struggle, no blood, nothing like that, but they did find a loaded handgun underneath her seat. What does this imply? Maybe she was fearing for her life, who knows? But a few days after this, after the car was discovered, a friend of Charlotte revealed that she saw Fred in his truck driving in the direction that the police eventually found the car. Not only that, Charlotte's car was being driven behind Fred's truck, but Charlotte wasn't driving. A young, curly, blonde-haired woman was. Now, this fits the description of Fred's girlfriend, Victoria. Interestingly, Charlotte had left notes a few days before her disappearance, revealing that she feared for her life, and not only that, she felt that Fred was actually stealing from her, stealing farm equipment. And obviously, being as hostile as he was, you know, fearing for her life, plus him wronging her, it's going to be a bad combination, isn't it? It's going to boil up into an argument, and bad things may well happen. And bad things certainly did happen. She also mentioned a Dale Kessler in the notes, saying that she feared him too. This was Fred's business partner, so police obviously went over to Dale's, interviewed him, and he said, look, Fred was with me that night, so he couldn't have done anything wrong, providing Fred with a solid alibi. Regardless of this, because of Jeff and Jenny's request to the sheriff, Fred and Vicky were put before a grand jury. However, they invoked their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, and it just went nowhere. And the case went cold for 3 whole years. The only thing really changing was the reward for any information leading to an arrest, or, you know, even just revealing what happened to Charlotte on that day. And that reward eventually raised up to $25,000. But there was nothing. So Jenny decided to hire a private investigator. And this private investigator got straight to work, and he fixated on one thing: young, blonde, curly hair. That had to be Vicky. So he did a bit of digging. Turned out Vicky had separated from Fred. So this meant that she was potentially open to discussion. He also found out that she liked playing pool and hanging out at local bars where she had moved to. So he went to this place, started checking out the local bars, and before he knew it, he bumped into her. And not long after that, he befriended her. And when he felt like he had got close enough to her, he revealed to her his actual intentions behind finding her. And surprisingly, she just wanted to get everything off her chest. It was as if it was weighing her down for the last 3 years. And she told him exactly what happened that day. So apparently Vicky and Fred were in a machine shed on the farm looking for 55-gallon barrels to do some farm work with. Along came Charlotte on her tractor, and Fred said, look, hide in the shed, okay? You don't need to be here right now. I just need to have it out with Charlotte. And of course, they had an argument, and it got incredibly violent. It got so violent that Fred actually strangled Charlotte, nearly to the point of being unconscious. And then he stopped. Meanwhile, obviously, Vicky is, you know, watching this all unfold from a hidden position. And he stops, and you think it's over. As Charlotte regains her breath, he starts again. Choking, nearly passing out, stops, regains, repeats, choking, regains, choking, regains, choking, until eventually Charlotte died. After this, he sodomized her body in front of Vicky. He then got a grease gun, inserted it into Charlotte's deceased mouth, and began filling up her body with grease. After this, he stuffed her into a 55-gallon barrel, and they headed out onto the road to go and dump her car. Now, obviously, he instructed Vicky, get into Charlotte's car, we'll take it to that bar just over the state line, and we'll then come back here and we will dispose of the body. So that's what they did. And they came back, and there was a maple tree near a river on the farmland. They set down the barrel. Fred poured diesel onto the body inside the barrel, which was already contained heavily of grease, of course, and he set it alight, and apparently it burnt all night. So morning came. Vicky and Fred sat there all night watching the body burn in the barrel. Morning came, and they overheard, oh no, a search party is coming. So they quickly put the fire out, put the barrel on the back of Fred's truck, drove over to Vicky's house, and they camped out there until that night, came back, put the barrel next to the maple tree again, set fire to it, and watched it all the way to the morning until pretty much the remains were gone, other than Charlotte's skull, to which apparently Fred said he thinks that the skull would make for great fish bait. He then rolled the barrel into the river, and it was never seen again. Now, obviously all this information is staggering, but there's no evidence. There's no body, there's no barrel, there's nothing tying Fred to this murder. So they're a bit stuck. Prosecutors need something solid here. And there's a new sheriff in town, and he has a brainwave after hearing about this maple tree. And this is where one of the most insane convictions comes from. Okay, so he calls up the local university, and he gets them to send down a plant biologist and an organic chemist to take samples from the maple tree. Now, this is because when maple trees grow, or any tree grows, they leave rings. So each year is a ring. And the rings are actually made because in the spring they grow, in the winter their growth is stunted, so that deviation in growth causes a ring. And these can be seen in the trunk, and it can be seen in the branches. And they could clearly see that there was a deviation in the growth 3 rings back. 3 rings equals 3 years. So that means something happened to this tree 3 years ago. But this wasn't quite enough. So they have this machine that can break down all the compounds within the sample that you give it. They cut down the branches, sawed it up into sawdust, put it through this compound analyzing machine, and it found that there was an incredible amount of hydrocarbons in certain areas of the tree. Hydrocarbons are found in diesel products. Diesel was the fluid that was used to burn the body. Now, the final nail in the coffin was branches were taken from all around the tree. The only branches that had hydrocarbons in the sawdust were the branches on the side of the tree that the barrel was burnt. They had Fred banged to rights because of a tree, and so Fred was sentenced to life in prison. But it doesn't just stop there, because after he was sentenced a few weeks afterwards, his new girlfriend tried to break him out by attending the county jail that he was at to give him a love note, whereas in fact she was there to break him out. She shot the police officer on duty, the deputy sheriff on duty, didn't kill him, threatened to kill him, but was afterwards apprehended, and she was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Now, Fred is still in prison to this day, but his parole is up in 2022. So what I did was I went to a website, like the actual prison website, so you can see what the prisoner is doing, blah, blah, blah. And apparently his projected parole date is the 15th of July, 2022, and his projected discharge date of release potentially, is the 17th of July, 2025. Do you think this man should ever be released? What do you think of this case? What do you think of the way that he was caught? Unbelievable, isn't it? Amazing what science can do. So there we go, guys. What do you think of this one? Let me know down below. Please head over to my Facebook. We've got 200,000 followers now. 200,000! Unbelievable. So go over there, check that out. Check this out, obviously, you know, like, share, subscribe on here as well, helps me out. Check out my podcast, my clothing, it's all linked down below. It's all great stuff, from entertainment from me to you for free. So, awesome. Thanks. I will see you very soon. Sweet one. Geese.